Tabby.
And I'm Caitlin, and today we are discussing Kingdom of the Cursed by Kerri Maniscalco. It is the second book in the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy, and I loved it.
It was so good. The whole series is so good.
I've been listening on Audible
You have?
since I started commuting for work. I'll say it's funny to me because the narrator will kind of like switch accents.
I know.
And I just think it's so funny. Like she kind of is mostly narrating from Amelia's point of view, obviously, and she like sounds British. And then all of a sudden there will be an Italian word and she just like code switches for like 3 sentences.
Or like anytime Nona talks and she's just like, now I'm Italian. I'm like, why is it not the same?
Yeah, and I haven't heard Nona yet
Oh,
because
because
we're
you're
in the
listening to the
second book.
second one.
Yeah.
Oh,
But I did start listening to the third book today, and
I
yeah, there
love it.
like are some characters that just are Italian all the time.
I
Just
think
love
she's
them.
a great narrator.
She
I
is
I
like
love her.
she is so like captivating. It's just
Yes,
funny when she switches her accents.
it is funny. Yeah, I love her. She does all three books, and I love that too because I feel like a lot of the time, like, and Sarah J. Maas is really bad about this too. Like, they'll have like a different narrator for every book.
Mm,
Because,
yeah.
like, especially if like you have like a really good one, you're like super
Hmm.
attached to it, and then all of a sudden you're like, who's this bitch?
Yeah, you need to like get that narrator a long-term contract.
And it's so funny too, because like with her especially, like for all of the Throne of Glass books, it's all the same. And then the Throne of Glass narrator is the same one for Crescent City, but for some reason, like the Akatar series, it's every single book's a different narrator, and none of them are that lady.
I hate that. Wow.
So I don't know if
The
like she
only book of Sarah J. Maas's that I've ever listened to on audiobook is actually A Court of Mist and Fury.
and I've listened to it too many times.
I'll tell you what. I
I think
listen to
I
it
could
as I
narrate it
fall
at this
asleep at night.
point.
Oh my
It's a,
God.
it's a comfort for me. Anyway,
All that to
so,
say, audiobooks are fun.
but what would you rate this second book?
I would rate the second book a 10 out of 10. I loved it so much. And there are some things like I got frustrated at points when Amelia was frustrated. And
Yeah.
again, I think that's kind of like purposeful. But there were times that I was kind of like, oh, like I just want
Like,
to
there's no
like,
way you don't know this.
yes, I just want to like shake her. But as far as like the storyline itself, I'm loving it. It's still so original. Like nothing about this has felt cookie cutter.
Yes.
And I just think that's really impressive.
No, and I do love that about her is that like nothing she does is like I think taken from other stories or like you can tell when something has been inspired by another book,
Yes.
which is fine.
Yeah.
But this is just all her own, and that's amazing.
Like, don't get me wrong. I love it when people do a good little twist on things, but
Sure.
this is like very original.
So this was my third time reading through it. So I gave it a 9.67 out of 10. So still very, very high. Don't get me wrong. I love this book. The only thing that kind of annoyed me was just the repetition. It was very redundant at
Hmm.
some points, especially with Amelia's character,
Yeah.
which obviously it's from her point of view. So makes sense. But like she would just repeat the same things over and over and over and the same thought process over and over.
No, I agree because there were like kind of in the middle of the book. And if it hadn't been my first read through, I could see it potentially dragging because it was getting kind of like,
Where are we going with this?
yeah, like leading up to the feast, there wasn't a lot going on. I guess she was technically training with Wrath, but it just felt like it could have been cut
Yes.
a little bit in the middle.
And that was probably, and I'll just talk about it now instead of later. That was probably my biggest bone to pick with the book is that, like, the whole beginning, they made it like this big deal, right? That she was going to the Feast of the Wolf
Hmm.
and that she was supposed to be like the like quote unquote sacrifice or whatever. And like that was the whole point of like this whole training montage and like her and Matt doing this and her and Anir training. And then it's like we get to the Feast of the Wolf, and I feel like it was just so brief.
Yeah.
Like a lot happened in that short time, but I feel like she could have just really expanded on that, or maybe introduced like some of the other sins a little bit more, like had some
Yes.
more interactions.
Because we didn't even like have interactions with Sloth at all.
No.
And the thing was like so hyped about like her being the sacrifice, and then she didn't even end up being
Yeah.
sacrificed.
Well, and then Wrath didn't really have to give up anything either. And so that I feel like that just fell a little flat for me.
I agree.
Other than that, though,
Yeah, that honestly, that's really the only thing I didn't like storyline wise.
yeah, I feel like she could have just did a little bit better with that part.
Yeah, agreed. Because I was ready for that event, and then it did kind of just like the expectations were too high.
Yeah, I feel like she's like, oh, I forgot I hyped this up, so now I have to write about it. Anyway, switching gears.
Yeah, exactly. We do want to go ahead and just read the back of the book thing from Goodreads.
Goods reads.
Goodreads. I will say it's got a 4.17 out of 5 stars. So good rating. So
Good read or good read.
a good read, would you say? After selling her soul to become Queen of the Wicked, Amelia travels to the Seven Circles with the enigmatic Prince of Wrath, where she's introduced to a seductive world of vice. She vows to do whatever it takes to avenge her beloved sister Vittoria, even if that means accepting the hand of the Prince of Pride, the King of Demons. The first rule in the Court of Wicked: trust no one. With backstabbing princes, luxurious palaces, mysterious party invitations, and conflicting clues about who really killed her twin, Amelia finds herself more alone than ever before. Can she even trust Wrath, her one-time ally in the mortal world, or is he keeping dangerous secrets about his true nature? Amelia will be I almost said Amelia will be tasted.
She's gonna be tasted. She's super
Amelia
sweet.
will be tested and tasted in
And tasted.
every way as she seeks a series of magical objects that will unlock the clues of her past and the answer she craves. One sister, two sinful princes, infinite deception with a side of revenge. Welcome to hell.
You know, the whole thing about her having to find like these trinkets and whatnot, that was also not a big part of
Yeah,
the
because
story at all.
she hardly like everything happened at the end. It was just thrown in.
I
And I
know.
think we could have just like distributed the book a little bit differently.
The crone was like, you got to find this mirror. She's like, say less. I know exactly where it is. That doesn't count. That wasn't
Yeah,
anything.
I know. It kind of pissed me off. It's fine though.
It's fine. Anyway, let's dive into some of the characters of this story. So, a few of them will be the same as last time. However, we did get to dig a little bit deeper into each one of them, and I was super, super excited. Our first one, as always, is Amelia. She is just a precious angel, you know.
I love her.
She's just like I don't know how she's made it this far. Like she's so smart. Don't get me wrong, she's very cunning and like there are some things she does. I'm like, yeah, that was badass. But there are other things that she does. I'm like, if he weren't there, you would be dead like 18 different times.
Yeah, she's not afraid enough. She literally like at the very beginning of this book, they're like trudging through hell for the first time. She like almost dies of hypothermia. Like,
Again.
girl.
I know. Well, and it's like twice now, like Wrath has told her, like, I'm not gonna save you, so don't you dare die. And
Yeah.
twice now he's also been like, just kidding, I'm a liar. Anyway,
He
here's my coat.
he got a little soft spot for her.
He does.
I absolutely loved her like her growth throughout this book though, because like you said, there are a lot of times when she's like a badass, and I think that's like her true nature, but she's always been like afraid to behave that way like back in her old life, and so now she's got like this
Yeah.
newfound sense of freedom and empowerment, and she's like really wanting to learn how to defend herself and be more comfortable with her desires that are like considered, sinful, but in
Sure.
the underworld they're like
Like,
normal.
this
So
is a normal Tuesday. Anyway.
she's like, oh yeah, like that orgy does look kind of fun, actually.
So she was a little delulu, in my opinion. Like there were some things that she would say, and I'm just like, come on. Like, we both know that is not going to happen for you in this
Mhm.
lifetime. And she's like, I just want things to go back to the way they are. Well, they're not going to
Yeah. She's
because
like,
you're in
I just
hell
want
now.
to be back in my kitchen with my family. It's like, hey, girl, you actually signed your soul away.
Like, I don't know if you know this, but like, that is a pretty big bargain that you've made there. And like, she's like, I'm going to get out of this and I'm going to kill a prince of hell. It's like, are you?
Yeah. She was like a little confident in that plan. Like, I don't know what made her
Like,
feel
you
so
thought about
powerful.
that for 3 seconds and you're like, yeah, I can do this.
She's like, for sure, no one's ever been able to do it before, but I think like I got it.
But if anyone's going to be able to do it, it is me. Why? Can't tell you, but
Because
it's
I'm the
me.
chosen one.
Pretty much. She does have like a chosen one complex.
Yeah.
Well, and also it's just like, especially when she finds out like Victoria is alive, she's like, awesome. Now we can go back to the human world and we can raise our kids together in this kitchen and continue running the trattoria. And it's like,
Even
what are you
though
talking about?
Even though Victoria straight up like faked her own death and was like, hey girl, like surprise, and didn't even like see her in person. She was like, oh, thank God. Like, let's go back home.
Like, I was so scared, like I was actually gonna have to go through with this.
Yeah. She was like, oh my God, I almost was queen of the underworld. That's
That was
crazy.
crazy. Oh man, she also was just like so bold. She was so bold in her choices that she made. Like, Wrath was not angry enough with her, I think, when she was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to strike this man when he's his most vulnerable. Like, he is essentially, like, without saying it, like, poured his heart out to her
Yeah.
and, like, opened himself up. And she's like, awesome. Anyway, have a good sleep for the next
Yeah.
month.
That pissed me off.
I was like, I feel like you could have probably just, well, you couldn't have asked him, but there was a better way to do it.
There was a better way. Like, you could have just snuck out.
He would have known though. I get why she did it, but like, damn, that was hard to read.
It was. And then literally he was just like chopping stuff in the kitchen later when she showed up and was like, "Oh, hey, come on in."
It's like you should be angrier, I think.
Yeah. He was like not even like at that point, I think he was just like, "Yeah, I should have seen it coming." But like,
He's like,
shouldn't
"Oh my
you
God, I made you a snack, babe. Like, sit down,
have?
have a seat." I don't know. That whole thing, I was like, no, I probably would have been furious personally.
Yeah. It would have been wrathful if it were me
If you know what I mean.
personally.
So,
Speaking of wrath.
yeah, speaking of wrath.
So you were like saying it was like glaringly obvious that he's the devil. And I was like, yes, I didn't have it like figured out though how, because I thought that he like somehow was also the Prince of Pride. I thought we were
Yes.
getting like a plated prisoner type
Like a little
situation.
switcheroo.
Yeah, but I mean, I was like not 100% sure because she kept like emphasizing, like Kerri kept writing when they were at the Feast of the Wolf, like anytime Amelia was like looking at the Prince of Pride, like Wrath was nowhere to be found. And I was like, okay,
Like,
so
oh,
like,
huh, that's strange.
are they the same person? I was like, why are you so like emphasizing that so much? So I don't
Well,
know if she like
and
meant to lead us down that.
when I say glaringly obvious, I mean that as in like now that I have read it, like that was glaringly
Yes. And like
obvious.
I obviously knew that like something was going on too, because they were
What's
literally
going
like,
on?
oh, the more powerful the prince, the colder the circle of hell. And like they were literally like
He's in the coldest circle of
hell
hell.
was fucking frozen over. And Amelia was like, wow, he must be pretty
That's
powerful.
crazy. Well,
I
no,
was
at
like,
one point,
dang.
Anir even said, like, yeah, this is the coldest circle of hell. And she's like, oh, wow, is Pride's like colder?
Yeah, I
And
know.
I was like, well, no, it's not because he just said that
And then
actually.
she didn't even think it was weird when she did like kind of ride into Pride's lands and like got kind of like stowed away for a little bit. She wasn't like looking around like, oh, it's kind of warm here.
Yes. Like, oh, hey, there's like grass.
There's like flowers growing.
Like a whole ass plant. Like there's like
Flower
a
field.
whole flower field.
Yeah, and
And
she's
she's
like,
like, "Well, that's
yeah,
nuts."
I think this is where the devil
Which,
rules.
you know what? Like, what if Pride's actually like one of the weakest?
And that's
Since
why he
like,
can grow
and that's
flowers.
why he's like out here growing crops. And that's why he has to like plant all this sleep stuff because like he can't like defend himself.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Like, I don't know what his agenda is, obviously,
I
but
would like, yeah, I'll,
I do kind of like him though, because I think there's like something interesting going on with him,
no,
but
I agree.
I just don't know what to think.
Yeah, no, we actually don't find out like a whole lot about him
Till
like
the
in the
third book.
next. Well,
Oh no.
not really even then.
Hmm.
I'm not gonna lie. Um, yeah, no, some other things. It was like the prologue. I was like, nah, that sounds like something Wrath would do for sure. Without like actually knowing if it is. His bedchamber was made out of the same stone as the gates of hell.
Yep.
His sigil is literally a serpent,
Yeah.
you know. And also like he made mountains move. And at first I was like, maybe that is just like
Like any of
something
them
that
can
can
do it.
happen. But then everyone was like kind of freaking out about it.
Yeah, actually, they were like, yeah, he kind of brought a mountain down and he
Like
doesn't
killed
normally act like
someone.
I killed someone. And they were like, whoa, like that
Like
was
that was
crazy.
crazy. I feel like he was just kind of a little shifty in this book too. Like he
Mhm.
was saying some like dumb shit.
He's like trying to provoke her. So I get that like a lot of it's purposeful, but like no, where it was too far was when he was like, now that you know what you like, you can take care of it yourself.
I was flabbergasted.
Flabbergasted, bean boozled, like Amelia couldn't believe it.
I know, I was like, wow, okay.
I
Like,
was
don't even
hurt.
act like you weren't affected by that.
I know. That's
Like,
too far.
okay.
That's too far. Like
And
you
like she was so naive too that she was like, oh fuck, like maybe he is like just like that. And I was like, no, no, he's not.
yeah, she was like, "Oh, I guess like that meant nothing to him." And then I felt like bad for her because she was embarrassed.
I was embarrassed. I
Yeah.
was embarrassed for her.
God damn.
Also, like I feel like every time Amelia would mention like anything about the devil, like he was just like over there like kicking his feet, like twirling his hair, like, oh my God, that's crazy. She's like, do you think I'll like him? Maybe. I don't know, girl. Guess
I
we'll
don't
see.
know.
Why are you keeping secrets?
Yeah.
But I think he wanted her to know. And she
Yeah.
was gonna find out eventually. Like it's not like
Right.
he could just keep this from her forever.
Yeah. And like he
Because
did like want her to know because he was like, whenever you do accept our betrothal, it'll be when you know who I truly am.
well, and also he like bamboozled her at the beginning into literally swearing herself to him.
Yeah.
And so it's like she's gonna know
Yeah.
eventually.
Yeah.
Like
And
how
then
you gonna talk
she
your way out of that
literally
one?
like just believed that like Wrath's bond was more powerful than the bargain she made with the devil. She just like accepted that when she thought
She's
pride
like,
was
yeah,
the
that
devil. She was
tracks.
like, yeah, that adds up. Does it?
No, it doesn't. Like you're saying that whatever this bond is that you have is more powerful than the devil?
Yeah. She should have known right then and
Come
there.
on, girl. Come on, girl. She's dumb.
A
Um,
little.
one thing that like no one really it's like briefly mentioned, but it was something that I had jotted down here too, is that like when they went to go see Celestia for the first time, first of all, their beef is hilarious.
I love that.
Um, but like she had just mentioned the feared and like he like freaked out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wish like we had gotten a little more information on
Yeah.
like what that was about.
Yeah, because I kind of forgot about that, to be honest. But I
Because
do
she
remember
said something
that.
like the feared stole something or whatever, or like the feared were more powerful than like the seven brothers, but that was it. And I was like, oh, okay, well, I feel like he got into a tizzy over that and like
Yeah.
Just never really talked more
Mm.
about it.
And Amelia was just like, oh, he's just moody. I don't know.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, okay, like that's weird.
Which, to be fair, she was a little out of it that night because she just like had a heart attack basically. And
Is she like a heart? Like, is she good?
oh God, I was scared when she was like the chest
She was
pain
like,
was
it's my
unbearable.
heart. I was
I
like,
was
what's wrong
like,
with your heart?
really?
Yeah, anyway, I'm really interested to see like how that'll play out because it kind of left the two of them on like a pretty big cliffhanger, you know?
Yeah.
So love that. Hate that she did that to us, but hopefully it kicks off with a bang.
Yeah. I was like, hello, where'd you go? Like that can't be the last sentence.
I'm like, you better not.
Yeah, but I immediately dove into the third book, so it's fine.
Envy.
You were right.
I love Envy.
You were right. I love
He's
Envy
so
now.
funny.
And I hated him after the first book. Like you're
Yeah, everyone
right.
did.
I
But he is like the morally gray character I want and need.
mm-hmm. Yeah, because Wrath, I mean, I get he's like the literal devil, but he's
Sure.
actually pretty like morally just. And he doesn't really do like he does withhold information, but like some of it might be the curse, some of it might just be like
Yeah,
he literally has to for, like because of his situation.
right.
But like he's way less shady than Wrath. Or no,
Then
he's way less
Envy.
shady than Envy.
Envy is shady.
Envy
He's a
straight up
shady
kidnapped
man.
Amelia's family and then was like, "Hey, bestie, you want to come join me for a drink?"
I know
Out
he's
of
like, do you want
here.
to play some like 20 questions?
He was like, "I'll like let you spell my wine if you want. I'll
You
tell the
want to do
truth."
hard drugs?
Oh my God. And then I was like a little confused whenever he was like, and again, it's because of the curse, it's because they can't tell her anything directly. But I was like confused why he just like left her. Like, did he want her to steal that spell book?
I think he is trying to set certain events in motion because it's like without her finding the spell book, she wouldn't have had any bargaining chip with Celestia, like to
Mm-hmm.
make the deal. And it also led her to finding the artifacts that he needed.
Yeah.
So I think probably, but then it also like now he has something over her because he's like, you stole from me, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna steal from you. And so I think in that sense, he was just being like kind of a little shit about it.
Which I think like any chance that the brothers get to be a little asshole, they're going to take it.
Well, and
I get it.
I think he is one that like really truly like holds dear that like knowledge is like a currency.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's not going to just be forthright with information unless like there's something in it for him.
That's true.
But part of it's also just like him being like, unless you want to give me something, you got to figure it out.
Yeah.
I also just think it's like, I don't know, maybe it's just another part of the writing thing, but you know how at the beginning Wrath was like, expect to receive like letters inviting you to the other sins' homes.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, the only one she got was to Envy. Not a single other one of them
The only
invited.
other invitation was like the feast.
And that's because like
Everyone
someone
was
had
fine.
to. Yeah, Envy was the only one that invited her in. So it
Mm-hmm.
makes me wonder like obviously he's toying with her because of what happened with their family, but why didn't any of the others?
Especially Pride. Obviously, you say like we don't figure out that much more, but like there's something going on with that part of the storyline. Like,
Well, Pride probably didn't want her to finding all the slumber root.
that's fair. I guess she
Also,
did immediately.
what if Pride's just like not in on it? Like he had no idea like Wrath was doing this. And Amelia's like, yeah, I'm your future wife. And he's like, who? Like when he shows up, he's like, who are you?
Yes, yes. Which I think she does like say that she's like associated with Wrath at that.
And I
Like,
think he probably knew eventually that she was there, but like I don't know if he knew that she was Like she thought she was betrothed to him.
He at least like he could have just been pretending for the sake of like not raising her suspicion, but he at least acted like he had no clue who she was until she was like, yeah, like I'm with Court, let me go.
And he was
And
like, okay.
he was like, okay, well, I don't recall inviting you, so you're going to the dungeon. Why, though, did he keep her there? Like, what was going on?
I don't know. Dude, I don't know. He's like, I'm not sure. Let's talk a little bit about
Yeah,
Pride really
I'm
quick.
getting off. But okay, one more thing to mention about envy is, he says something extremely important was taken from him as
By
like a
Wrath.
result of, yeah. Yeah. So we don't really know like what the beef is.
Mm-mm.
I'm curious to find out though. And it's interesting, like it's they just have all the brothers have such a weird dynamic with each other. Like, because they're
But
all rivals, but at the same time, like they think that they
they
wouldn't,
I think they don't love each other, but they
yeah.
do like have a
They have like a respect for each
respect.
other. And I think that they recognize that there's power in them as a whole,
Yeah.
and they don't want to lose that. So they're probably
But
careful not to screw it up too much.
what I think is just interesting though is that Envy says he doesn't like Wrath and like Wrath took something from him, yet he likes Amelia. Like he's
Yeah.
not holding that against her and like being a dick about it. And
Yeah.
so like I'm just really interested to see like what it is or like what their relationship is or if he knows something about her past that like plays into why he's like nice to her.
I definitely think he could because Gluttony like seems to know too.
Yes.
So I'm really
Gluttony made it glaringly obvious that like he
he knows
knows
about
like her past.
we can go ahead and just talk about him now. I loved his character. I was
Love Gluttony.
surprised. I was like, no, I'm not really gonna like Gluttony, but I do. And I knew he was the one inviting her. Like, whenever the hunt was going on,
Yeah.
I was like, ooh, it's Gluttony. And so I think that's kind of the other person who took an interest in her. Like he didn't like send her a letter because he's probably like, well, she's gonna be at the Feast of the Wolf anyway, so I'll just wait. But I was like, obviously, I was super intrigued whenever he was like, I find that sometimes our bodies remember what our minds do not,
Yes.
about her riding a horse. And she legitimately, like, that ended up to be the truth. And so I was like, okay, so she's got a past life. And obviously with like her having like the memories and stuff, that was like it was meant to be like suspected. But I have so many theories that we're going to talk about later.
With Gluttony too, he almost has like a kinship with her. Like he's overly familiar with her. So he's the only one of the brothers who is just outright kind of giving her information or like hinting at like,
Mhm.
hey, maybe like you have repressed memories. But he also is the only one that calls her my friend.
I didn't even notice
So
that.
like when he refers to her, he always refers to her as my friend.
Oh, that's so cute.
Wrath always calls her like witchling and like Envy always calls I don't remember what Envy calls her, but like Gluttony is like very warm towards her and like
I think is Envy the one that calls her Shadow Witch?
yes. Oh, and then Pride calls her Lady Vengeance.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like Gluttony, I don't know, I think maybe if he somehow knew her and she just doesn't remember like they were friends
Yeah.
almost.
No, yeah, I believe that 100%. Because you're
Yeah.
right, he was like freely offering this information up too. Like he wasn't trying to get anything in exchange. He was just like, no, like I think you'll find that your body remembers a lot of things that your mind doesn't.
It's
And
crazy. Well, and even when like all of the brothers, like I feel like he kind of protected them too, and especially with like the Feast of the Wolf thing, like he worded their like punishment or whatever very specifically,
Mhm.
whereas like Pride was like, yeah, you're gonna do it like right here in front of everybody or with one of us. And Gluttony's like, or they can have like a tryst and it can be in like a room of their choosing. And so he kind of
Uh-huh.
left it up for interpretation. And I definitely think he did that on purpose.
Yes, 100%. Also, just like the freaking tension between Gluttony and the reporter
The
that
reporter, I was like, give me
hates
a book
him.
immediately.
I know. I'm like, give me enemies to lovers. Like,
I
I'm
love
here
it.
for it. Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
my
because
God.
he's just like so happy go lucky and whatever. But like the second like she is there, he's just like, I'm a killer.
Yes. And I'm like, oh my God, that
I'm
could
like,
be the
ooh,
most
okay.
rewarding story.
Love that.
I want to know all about that.
So back to Pride really quick. There's just a couple weird things that he did too that we were talking about. So obviously he has the slumber route, and I know you have some theories on that, but also just the fact that like he was dressing up like a common soldier.
Hmm.
What does he have to gain from that? I don't think very many people know like what Pride looks like
Hmm.
because he's trying to keep
Especially,
up the appearance of being the devil.
yeah, that's true.
Like I feel like that's important.
Yeah, it could be kind of like what you were saying, like maybe he's like the least powerful of all the brothers. And so he does kind of feel like he needs to be more like hands-on with his like leading. I don't know. It's weird because he also didn't recognize Amelia or was pretending not to. And you would think that he would want to kind of like mess with her and be like, no, I am proud. Like, I don't know.
Or like if somehow she does know them, like why would he pretend? I mean, I guess that makes sense why he wouldn't if it's something like the curse is blocked out or whatever, but
Mhm.
I don't know, it was just like a strange thing to me.
With his storyline, Amelia confirms with Wrath that Pride really did have a consort who was taken from him. So
Yeah.
I want to know like what's going on with that too. Like, does he know that? Like, or is he
Does
like
he
forced to
remember? Like,
forget as part of the curse? Like, I
yeah.
don't know. And it brings up the question too, like, who was his consort? It's just so open-ended.
Well, and you know what else is funny? That so like he pretends he doesn't know Amelia, whatever, like
Mhm.
finds out she's rats, and then like when she's trying to get information from him and kind of pulls him off to the side, like at the party, like it just immediately assumes like it's for intimate reasons. And it's
Yeah, he
like,
was like, "Oh,
what
you want to
a
make out?"
bold assumption.
He was like, "Wow, she's really feeling
Like
me."
just rips his mask off and is like, yeah, let's do this. And I'm like, whoa.
I did think that was so funny because I was listening to that part on the
It's
audiobook.
hilarious.
He was like, "Oh, like I was just here for kissing." And she was like, "Okay, that's
Well,
great."
I'm gonna strike a deal.
But
Like
yeah,
he was so
obviously,
down for it.
I know. But it goes to show that like Amelia's deal, it was proving that he doesn't have any of his brothers in on the slumber root situation.
Yeah. Well, except Gluttony knows.
Oh, yeah.
And Gluttony's just keeping that to himself.
But he doesn't want Wrath to know. So it's like that feels important.
It's like, does is Gluttony in on it too? Also, I think it's like crazy that like Pride is the one that's like closest to where like the sisters are, like in
Hmm.
the forest. Like I wonder if he knows they're there and like if he like consorts with them as well.
Don't know. I don't know.
I just feel like he's very strategically positioned, like his
Yes.
court, and like it's very secretive.
It bothers me that there's so much, like, we're two books in, and
I have
there's so
so many
much
questions.
that, yes, because it goes off in so many different directions. And so it's like, I don't even know what to think because every time I do kind of go down like one train of thought, I'm like, well, does that add up with this other storyline? And I
Right.
don't know. But then half the time it turns out Amelia has just been lied to anyway.
You know who else kind of confused me? Celestia.
Yeah.
Like
What's
her
going
whole
on?
role, it doesn't make sense to me how she and Wrath. have this beef, right?
Hmm.
But
She's in his
Amelia
court.
doesn't know if Wrath knows if she's the crown.
Hmm.
Because, like, she kind of kept that secretive,
Yeah.
like, whenever she went to go visit the sisters, like, in the woods.
Yeah.
But I feel like that would probably be a big reason why maybe Wrath does have beef there, because he's the devil, so he's running hell. But she's, like, the queen of, like, the underworld or whatever, or,
Hmm.
like, of death. I can't even remember what it said, but it's like, I feel like that's a conflicting thing.
Yeah, so like is the whole thing that so he's the king of demons, so her role would be more over like mortal like souls. Like what's her role in the
I
underworld?
don't know. The whole, like, I feel like the whole whatever they're called, like, what were the sisters called?
The seven stars.
Seven stars. I feel like that was just thrown at us.
Yeah.
And I'm like, who are these women?
And I have more questions than
And
answers.
I have so many. And why is only Celestia the most important? Where are the other six and what do they do?
Well, yeah, because what so if Celestia is the crone, like the mother and the maiden must
Where are
be down
they?
here, right?
I don't know.
I don't know either.
I don't know. I knew she was funky too. I knew she was funky. Like, there
Yeah,
was something not right about
for
her.
sure, for sure. And
Well, and
she
like,
also is
she's kind of,
trying to like push Amelia in certain directions, but
I
without
feel like
like breaking
she
the
has her own
rules.
agenda as well.
Yeah, because she got way too happy when Amelia was like, "No, I'm doing it." I'm like looking into the mirror, and she was like, "Hey, yeah."
Yeah.
I
Well, and she's just like, and now you owe me too. And I'm like, oh,
know.
okay.
I was like,
So
"Oh
you're not just
shit.
like this generous old lady.
Oh
Like,
no. Nothing's for free in hell."
okay. So I'm interested to find out more about her for sure.
Yeah,
Don't really know anything about her, but I have a lot of questions.
same. And also just about the seven stars. Like I know
Yeah.
it was touched on a little bit, like they're somehow keeping the peace between like the underworld and the mortal
But
world, as far as I can tell.
oh, so like it's like the as above, so below thing. Like they're the
Yeah.
above and like the princes are the below, or like,
Well, I don't think I kind of interpreted the above to be like the actual mortal world, but maybe it did mean the seven stars. But the seven stars are somehow like keeping the peace by keeping these objects safe. Like, I don't know. I'll have to
I
like
don't
reread it.
know.
I'll have to reread it because there was just so much information.
I'm
And I feel like
still confused about
my
it.
brain didn't process it.
I don't know. Anyway, the other couple characters, so we have Fauna. Love Fauna.
Love her.
What a homie.
She's
She's just,
so fun.
yeah, she's just out here like pushing Amelia to explore herself and just like live her truest life. And I love that.
I really hope that in the third book that she and Anir kind of like have a relationship going on. 'Cause she is like she's so into him and I just want the
Yes.
best for her.
And Anir's hilarious.
I love Anir.
I like he was in this book a lot more, but I feel like we could have gotten like more of him.
Yeah.
Like,
Because I love his character so much, but
yeah,
the parts that we did get were I thought were so wholesome. Like he was always showing up for Amelia, like when she needed a friend.
yes.
He could tell when she was like needing the support. And just like the fact that he offered to like train her, like that's
That was
so
so
sweet.
nice.
Because
And
she was just so like intent on learning to defend herself. So that's
he
important.
was willing to like give her some answers too. He was like, "Get me drunk." Like, I
Yes.
can't tell you any other way. Like, you're gonna
Yeah,
have to get me drunk, but I'll do it.
I know. He was like, please. He was like, spell my wine. Spell my wine.
Do it.
I
Yeah. And he like brought her all the foods from like home and stuff, and that was so nice.
know. I love Anir.
He's so sweet. Freaking Antonio. What's his deal?
Dude, I'm so confused. When he showed up in the mirror with like Victoria, I was like, what the fuck is going on? Because as far as Amelia knows, like Antonio's the one who murdered Amelia and the other witches. Like that's her understanding of what was going on. But then she sees him with Victoria in the mirror. She's like, oh my God, Victoria's alive. And he's like calling her his like angel or something.
His angel of death? No.
I don't remember what title he
Angel
was
of
using. But he's like very clearly like following her.
Yeah. Like it's a very cultish type vibe
Yeah.
coming
And I
from
was just so
him.
confused because I was like, are you even a Catholic? Like, were you
Are
ever
you
a
in the
Catholic?
priesthood?
I was just like, was that like
The
part of
cover?
the cover? Yeah. No,
I
seriously.
don't
Like,
know. Because it's like he's just out here lying. He's just lying to everybody. Because
yeah.
he's like, I didn't do that. Like I didn't murder
Yeah. He
her. I
acted
didn't.
shocked that Amelia wanted to
He was
strangle
like,
him.
Amelia, why are you so upset?
Okay. Like, I feel
Does
like
he not recognize her? Does he not recognize Victoria?
I don't know. It's so weird. I'm like, is he like under the influence of some kind of like magic, or is he actually like he's just been lying about everything else?
Like Victoria has the same face as Amelia. And so
Yeah.
when he sees Amelia, he's like, you look awfully familiar. Can't quite put my finger on it.
But maybe he's like fully lucid. He knows exactly who Victoria is and he has this whole time.
And he's just a very skilled liar.
Yeah.
Because
Like I
even
don't
Wrath
know.
didn't know, like, even Wrath couldn't tell he was lying, if that's the case.
Ooh.
Because Wrath can tell when people are lying.
Yeah, but it's also possible that somebody like made him do those lies, like under the influence of magic.
Yeah, maybe like
And
he
you wouldn't
blacked
be able
out
to
or
tell.
something. I don't know.
I genuinely like don't know. Like I don't understand it at all.
I was thrown for a loop.
Yeah. And like Victoria, we knew it. Like we called it last
Knew
time.
it.
She alive. But like what the fuck is wrong with her? I don't trust her at all. She literally like let her twin and the rest of her family believe she had gotten brutally murdered and then just kind of like let them grieve her. And now she's acting possessed. Like she's literally like she's got like purple eyes or some shit.
Mm-hmm. I don't know.
And you do know though, and you're making a face.
I don't like Victoria,
She's pissing me off.
like
And I will say I've
personally.
started the third book now and she's continuing to piss me off real bad.
Pissing me off. To be continued with her. Let's talk about some things we liked and disliked.
Ooh, I'm gonna start with like the Sin Corridor.
Oh my
So
God.
the Sin Corridor, like that whole part of the book I just found so interesting
It
because
was
it's
crazy.
so funny that Amelia can never tell. She's like, man, I sure am angry right now. And
And she's like, oh shit, not again.
I like she can never tell until things like really get out of hand, and I just think that's hilarious. But when they were like sleeping overnight, she had like this vision basically like she thought they were like about to get it on and she was into it and I was like, "Oh my God, this is it. They're about to fool around." And nope, she was dreaming.
No.
And he woke her
Well,
up. I was like, let her cook."
stop it. Funny thing was, she woke up and she was like, yeah, let's continue this conversation as though this is a normal thing that she does. And then immediately was like, I don't know what came over me. It's like, yeah, girl, that's not a normal thing that you do. Like,
Yeah, hey girl, like you're in the Sin Corridor.
remember how you've never been with a man in your life?
Yeah, she was like, "Ooh, I know exactly what to do." And honestly, she is pretty confident in any of their encounters, even though she's never done anything like that before. So good for her.
So I think my favorite part is the second training scene. So the first one's really good too, don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
The second one cracked me up. So Wrath feeding her strawberries, first of all, so freaking cute because she was blacked out.
Yeah.
And then Amelia immediately trying to seduce Wrath while still blacked out.
It was so funny. She was just trying so hard to get a strawberry on her fork, and he was like, "Can I?"
He's like, can I please help you?
He was like, "This is actually really embarrassing."
Like, I am cringing so hard. but it led into something great, then immediately turned into something bad.
Yes, God, he pissed me off. I also like really love the lagoon scene because again,
Yes.
they're like kind of heavy petting, like
I was
there's some
blushing.
hanky panky going on. Um, I was like, yes, here it is. Okay, last time wasn't it, but this is it for real. Nope.
Just kidding. She's the
Amelia
queen
all
of
of a sudden is like, I have
tension.
a heart attack or something.
Yes, Kerri, give us nothing.
She's good at that.
She really is.
I
I
gotta
love
tell you,
that.
it continues.
I
It
love it.
continues.
Also, just like Wrath coming unhinged is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, because he's like a pretty stoic dude, like very
Hmm.
serious. So, like, when he just kicks in this door, like, after thoroughly like ravishing her in the hallway,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Are you ready for dinner?" And she's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Great." Boom. Like,
I fucking
kicks,
love
and
him.
then just pretends like it didn't happen.
That kind
What
of
was
strikes
that?
me as like he just had a little bit of an impulsive thought and he just kind of let it happen and he was like,
Like,
yeah,
that was the only way to like channel his like just inner rage, I guess,
yeah.
over that.
Or he was just like, it would be fun kicking the door
I'm
in.
gonna kick in the
Like
door.
I don't know.
Well, and at first I was like, maybe like it was to command attention and respect. But
That's
then they're
fair.
like, we've never seen him do that ever. And I'm
I
like,
mean, maybe he's
oh,
just showing
okay.
off for his lady. He was like,
And
look what I
like
can do.
it was so funny because like it was not explained and it was never brought up again. Then also like on the other side of it, like him coming unhinged, like he will be so serious and just say like the most like dirtiest sentence.
I mean, I know, I get it. He's like the devil, but he's like really good at seduction.
Yeah, obviously it progressed more than it did in the first book, but like at no point were they ever like intimate beyond like you said some heavy petting.
Yeah.
Well, I guess that's not true. Like they
Eventually,
got pretty
like,
intimate.
yeah, like
They didn't
eventually.
sleep together or
But it took
anything.
it took until like that training session.
Yeah. And like he just starts slipping these things in here. Like he's like, "Am I your humble servant?" And I'm like, "Oh,
I know. I was
okay."
like, shut up.
I
Shut
was like,
up.
love that." Like, okay.
And have I ever
Um,
told you that your anger is like my own personal aphrodisiac?
like quit flirting
She's
with
angry
me.
all the time. Oh my God.
Like you just like always like just turned on.
Yeah, I think he is. He loves
She's an
Amelia.
angry person.
Yeah, she's an angry little witch.
Uh,
Also, one of my favorite things about like the beginning of this book is that he really was so jealous. And he was really like falling into the whole envy part of the situation because Amelia said something about like she implied that she wanted to go like marry Pride, like she was here to marry Pride.
yeah.
And he went and he like brought an entire mountain down on somebody. And then like also whenever that one dude like kept talking trash and he had already
Knock it
been
in or
warned
whatever.
once. Yeah, and then he got his tongue cut out. I was like, "Oh my God, like he
Like
is
good.
not messing around." I just think it was so funny that he was so like jealous of anyone,
He would get so bent out of shape.
yeah, anyone who looked at Amelia the wrong way or like implied they had any sort of like possession over her. He flipped the fuck
He's
out.
like, not on my watch. He did her so dirty though, during that first training session where he was making her just act like a thirsty hoe. And she
Yeah,
was so embarrassed and then was just like, no, I will do anything for you.
that was hard to read because and then he had the audacity to be mad about it. Like, bro,
He was like, no,
shit.
you gotta figure it out. And she was like, I'm trying.
I'm trying, but you're really hot.
Oh man, it was so embarrassed. I got with like secondhand embarrassment reading that
I hated any time that she was like,
under
even when
the
she wasn't like under the influence of like his power, I hated like anytime she was kind of like fully into it and then he wasn't like that, like the second training
It's
session
like a
when
will
he
they, won't
pretended.
they?
Yeah, I was like, God, this is so embarrassing because he pretended he wasn't even interested in the fact that he just
That would hurt
cut
my
her off.
feelings so
Yeah.
badly.
I was like, I can't, like, I
I think
think I had to
it's
close the book.
I think it's just because it's like that's not the first time it's happened either. It's like they'd already gone to had they gone to the lagoon at that point? Yeah,
Yeah.
they'd already gone to the lagoon at that point. And then he does the exact same thing he did in the lagoon to her in the training room and was like, all right, that was my little helpful hint to you. You're just gonna pretend everything else hasn't happened, man? Like,
Yeah, that did kind of piss me off. Fucking wrath.
I did like after the feast though. I feel like we
Yes,
made some progress. It was
that's
just kind of a
true.
bummer that she poisoned him.
Yeah, but he wasn't mad, so it's fine.
He wasn't mad, so it's all okay. He forgave her.
I like how we're like, how dare Wrath do all this stuff, and I'm like,
And like
oh, it's
she
fine.
did take away his free will.
Yeah, she's just a little bit. Just, I mean, he was safe in his bed, tucked in for the night. I do also need to say, because like we've already kind of talked about, we wish that the Feast of the Wolf part was longer because like the middle felt like too long and then that part felt too short. But I also wish that we had like just more information about what the Feast of the Wolf is. Like
Yes.
everyone like wears masks to this ball and all the princes wear wolf masks. And I'm like, okay, so what's the story behind that? Like what tradition
Are they
is this?
hunting people? Well, she kind of like said like what the human tradition was, but Wrath was
Mhm.
just like, we don't do that here. And that
Yeah.
was it.
And I'm like, okay, so what do you do? And like why do you do it? And like the whole having a guest offer up
A
a
fear.
sacrifice. I'm like, who is the wolf? And is it feasting on the fear? I don't know. Like, how is it all related?
Well, and it sounds like they didn't do anything like they normally do at the feast. So like, yeah, we're changing it up this year. And it's like, well, what do you normal like what does it normally look like?
And like, does it have any significance? Because if you can just
Yeah.
switch it up.
It's
And then
because it's
like the
like
hunt, what the fuck goes up with the hunt?
I think it was literally just a distraction. Like they had to have everyone off doing something while she went out. I don't know. I feel like the whole feast thing was just a huge cop out to add in like a bunch of last minute details.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of the actual event itself, like, just didn't make sense.
Because I feel like it's probably a pretty big deal if like all of the princes of hell are like together, right? I
Yeah,
would say. But
I
it's
would say so
like,
too. Like, because they're not like just having monthly meetings or anything. Like,
as far as we know,
that's
um,
true.
because it's like you have all seven there, but the only ones that we saw were gluttony, envy, pride, and wrath.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they mentioned lust, but
Mm-hmm.
like you don't know anything about the other brothers.
She
Like
like saw
Greed,
Greed and Lust there. She didn't see Sloth until
Greed
the
was there
little
briefly.
ball.
So really it's just Sloth we haven't met.
Not at all.
It's so unfair.
It's weird.
Like why? Why are we leaving him out?
Like he's so lazy he can't like come talk to her. Is that what they're getting at?
Like all the other brothers are hot. I bet he is too. Like
And it
I don't
sounds like
know.
he's fun to hang out with. He's
Yeah,
always just kind of laying
he's
around.
just chilling.
I feel that.
Well, I feel like none of them actually like practice their like sins. Like they're just in
Well,
charge of them.
they said like I think Amelia said at one point she did kind of look and he had laid down somewhere. So I was like that so he's kind of like a cat.
I did also think it was really funny that Kerri had to clarify that Wrath and Amelia were both consenting adults.
So yeah, because obviously we talked about last time we hate age gaps. But now I'm like thinking that Amelia has a past life and stuff. Like maybe she's like actually also ancient, but I don't know. Like it's confusing because like she can remember her whole life as like human or not human, I guess technically, but she can remember her whole life as Amelia, like growing up and like all this stuff. But it's like, who are you? Like,
But
are
like
all those
obviously
memories
they
like
know you.
planted? Yeah, so maybe she actually is also immortal. I don't know. Well, no, she can't be immortal because she's almost died a few times. It's like giving me more questions than answers.
We'll see. Do you want to do a quick theory quarter?
I
So
do.
I know you have like your own theories.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
I'd
some
love
of
to
it I
hear.
did kind of already talk about. So let's
Okay.
start with
Okay.
like your bullet point here about vengeance and fury.
Yeah, so there's just some stuff I wanted to point out because I mean, like I said, I have read on at this point, so I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to give away anything.
Right.
So there were like a few different times that the topic of vengeance and fury is repeated like a lot.
Mm-hmm. I
And so
did
I feel
notice
like
that.
there is some significance to that. So the school says Fury is returning. At one point, Amelia describes herself that she could pass for a goddess of death and fury. She says she was Fury in the flesh. And then Pride calls her Lady of Vengeance.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is definitely something that I feel like she added in for our benefit
Mm-hmm.
that maybe you wouldn't catch
Yeah.
until you're like,
No,
I feel like she's mentioned this more than once.
agreed. And I did notice that while reading, but I didn't really know what it meant. And so, like, maybe it's possible that this kind of like past life situation is like Amelia was like a goddess,
Or related to a goddess, or like,
like a
yeah.
descendant, a direct descendant, because like the first witch was a direct descendant of, does it specify which goddess? She is
Well,
super powerful because she's a direct descendant of a goddess. And so like maybe Amelia is
because
too.
I think the witches only celebrated one goddess, maybe
Mm-hmm.
because she said Nona just had like a shrine basically for the first witch,
Mm-hmm.
but like they didn't acknowledge like any of the other goddesses.
Yeah, especially because they only practiced light magic. I don't
Yeah.
think they didn't.
So I don't think it ever specified what witch or
Mm-hmm.
what goddess, sorry.
Yeah, they didn't pay
Um
tribute to any of the other goddesses.
Also like the thing with like memory flashbacks. Gluttony kind of pointed out that like she maybe has like some memories that have been confined to herself and that like the body remembers what the mind doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
So again, multiple times the memory of the cabin in the mountains with Nona and Victoria, she reminded herself of that, but couldn't quite remember like how they got there or why they were there, only
Yes.
that she was with Nona and Victoria, but like couldn't remember anything that happened after that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like Nona is somehow involved maybe with her memories being taken away. Because at one point, Amelia says, what if I was so terrible the witches punished me for it? When she's trying to theorize, like, why she couldn't remember certain things if that did happen. And so that would make sense if she has like these fragmented memories.
Mm-hmm.
Like she was able to pick up fighting and like horseback riding and all these things that she's never done before, but she remembered how to do it. And then the crone, when she met with her, just was continuously asking like who she is.
Yeah, and another thing about her whole thing, and she was like, what if I was so terrible? Because she is like realizing finally she's been practicing accessing her source, like her magic.
Yes.
And she's like, I can tell there's something like angry that's waking up.
Mm-hmm.
And she doesn't recognize it. She's like, what the hell is that? Like, it kind of like spooked her at first because she
Mm-hmm.
was like, I've never felt that way before.
And then she also says that like some of the spells came to her like budding memories. So
Mm-hmm.
like whenever she put the truth spell on Antonio, she had never learned it before, didn't know where it came from, but she
Yeah.
knew it type of thing.
Yeah.
And so yeah, when she found Source, she was like, oh.
And then Nona punished her for that because she was like
Mm-hmm.
trying to
And maybe that was why
prevent.
she wouldn't let them practice any
Oh,
of the
I'm sure.
forbidden magic.
Yeah, that totally tracks. Like, because I know Nona was in on it, obviously,
Yeah.
but I don't
Known as
know.
sketchy.
I don't know why yet, but like, obviously, there's something going on. So, again, with Amelia, so when I was like reading at first, I was like, what if Amelia is the first witch's daughter? And it's funny because she asks the
She
crone.
says that too, yeah.
Yeah. But the crone tells her, like, no, you're not. I'm pretty sure that she
Yeah,
asks the crone that. So
she
she
does.
says like no, like
Well, she asked the crone, "Are you the first witch?" And she was like, "No." And she's like, "Am I the first witch?" And she's like, "No." She's like, "Am I her daughter?" And she's like,
yeah.
"Also no."
Yeah, because I had thought that at one point. And then also there's something going on with the statue that
Mhm.
Amelia heard wailing
Oh yeah,
from.
yeah, yeah.
And so I was like, it's possible because Amelia thinks like that could be the first witch's daughter. And I was like, yeah, like I could see that. But would the first witch really like put her daughter in there? Because she was like, maybe she's trying to protect her, but like that just seems like not the play. Because like
Yeah,
I'd rather be dead than trapped underground.
right.
Um, so I was like, what if that is like Pride's consort? Or Envy said something was taken from him. So like what if
Oh,
it
like
was
what if
like
it's
Envy's
envies?
lover or and like Wrath really is the one that put her there. I don't know. There's obviously like not a lot to go on yet, but I thought
Mm-hmm.
that's something to like look
I
forward to in
forgot
the third
about
book.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And then oh, it's funny too because you know how Amelia finally was like, "Oh, Raph gave me a hand mirror. I bet that's the triple moon mirror."
It's like, okay.
And whenever Envy though brought up like the triple moon mirror, I was like, "Oh, Raph just gave you a mirror. Maybe it's that one." And this was like the like I don't know, like the 10th chapter of the book, like not
Yeah.
very far in. I was like, "Well, no, he probably wouldn't just lay that there, would he?"
When she picked up the fucking paperweight, she's like, "Wow, what a cool paperweight." And I was like, "That's a weird thing to like comment on." And
Uh-huh.
then later she's like, "I bet this paperweight like goes to
Is
the
the
mirror." I was like,
key. I
"What
was like,
the fuck?"
"What?" Yeah, that fucking pissed me off. But I
I was
guess
like, "Not
it's
the
called the
paperweight.
temptation key and like temptation and it was like the
It's a
serpent. So
snake."
I get it, but like how'd she know it was a key?
Like, come on.
Yeah.
Well, I think it was because she like cut her finger. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
Come on, Kerri.
That add that to the list of things that we don't like, I guess. Oh, and then the last thing was like with the crone. I just wanted to say this isn't necessarily a theory, but I just wanted to say that the crone is giving Suriel, and I love her.
Yeah, yeah, she
I love
is.
her. But the one thing I was kind of like trying to theorize and make sense of is like, so the crone obviously was like pleased when Amelia kind of like decided, okay, I'm gonna like set this in motion. I'm going to look into
Mhm.
the mirror. The crone was pleased by that. And so I was like, there's obviously something going on that like she's excited to be seeing set in motion. And so like I wonder kind of what her end game is. And like Wrath and the crone obviously have beef, but at the same time, like she lives there. Like she lives under Wrath's like circle or whatever. So like I think they're allies in something.
I don't know. It's like, is Amelia gonna tell him or like?
Well, I don't know. And it's like, does Wrath actually know she's the crone? Maybe he
I
does.
don't think. I don't know.
I don't
I
know
don't
either.
know.
But it's like I think that the crone and Wrath are allies in something. And I don't know exactly what it is, but
Which is why she lives there. Yeah.
yeah, they seem to want the same thing. And so I think that this undoing whatever curse is going on is like what the crone seems to want as well. So I
Yeah.
find that interesting, especially because that would mean that the crone is kind of against the first witch because the first witch is the one who like cursed them in the first place.
Right.
So
Hmm.
it's like that's interesting. And there's something there. It's just I don't have enough
I
information.
just don't know what. Yeah. That's a lot to chew on for next time.
I know.
Well,
We did have
let's.
like a couple
Yeah.
discussion questions, but they're kind of like shorter than normal. Okay, so first question is what do you think should be like should constitute as young adult versus like new adult? And should there be like a cutoff in terms of
Yeah.
the content?
Yeah, no, I was pondering that one quite a bit, like reading because I think I was in like half price books or something the other day, and I saw that it had been put in like the young adult section, and I was like,
Mhm.
probably a mistake because like while the first one is young adult, like the second one, I don't think it is
No,
personally.
I agree with you.
And so I was like, maybe it's a fluke. But then I was at Barnes and Noble the other day, and again, it was in like the young adult section. I was like,
Mhm.
that's a little scary because it's like, I don't think kids shouldn't not read stuff, but like also like what if like a kid picked that up, like
Right. And
a
like
younger
wasn't
kid.
expecting that. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think we need to be honest about what's like in the books so that like they know
Because
like when
even
they're making these
Amazon
decisions.
has this listed as like young adult.
And I think part of the problem is,
The first one was.
well, yes, that's part of it, but also second is like the term young adult, like that kind of leads you to believe, like the word adult leads you to believe that they would be 18 or older, but
That's not what a young adult
that's
is.
not what young adult means in terms of a genre. Young
Right.
adult is going to be like middle school to high schoolers reading these
Yeah.
books. And so maybe they just shouldn't call it young adult. Like maybe they should
Yeah.
just call it like teen.
Because yeah, what is like the cutoff in terms of content? Like what type of content? Like what's the line that's crossed?
Yeah, because
You
I mean,
know?
there was a whole ass orgy going on, eating chocolate sauce off someone's titties. So I was like, and again, like I am not saying we should like censor what kids read, like,
No, and that's not what I'm saying either.
but they should know what's expected. Like they should be able to buy a book and know whether or not that kind of content could be in there.
Right, because it's like there's also a big difference between a 16 to 18-year-old than there is like an 11 to 13-year-old,
Yes.
you know?
100%. Yeah.
But young adult is just like lumped together.
Yeah. Like freaking Twilight is young adult. So it's like,
ACOTAR is young adult
and see, like again, the first one, like that's
for
fine.
sure.
But then you start to get later on, and it's like, okay, like
It's
kids
not.
kids need to like obviously like have a healthy and like respectful boundary with their parents about what their
Sure.
parents think is appropriate, but like they also just need to know whether or not that could be in a book because maybe it makes them uncomfortable, like maybe they don't want to read that, and maybe they've never had any other like discussion before about those types of things, and it's going to make them like it's going to like freak them out and make them anxious. Like I don't know, I'm trying to think what it was like to be a 12-year-old and like
I feel like reading that as a 12-year-old would have been like really shocking.
I know I would have, because at that age I just hadn't ever like had, any sort
And
of like discussion or maturity or anything
right.
about that type of thing, and I think it would have like I would have felt nervous, like I was going to be in trouble, like
Yeah.
I would have been like
Well,
anxious.
yeah. I don't know. It's just that was something I was thinking about because I feel like there's a lot of books out there right now that are kind of like that in between young adult and like a romantic fantasy novel.
Yeah.
Because even Kerri Maniscalco, like when she's writing it, marketed it as a young adult book. And when she released the second one, she had said, this is taking a step in the direction of new adult, but could still be considered young adult. And I even feel like that is a little misleading.
Hmm. And like,
Whereas, like with the third one, she said this is like a new adult book because it
mhm.
is. It certainly is. But when you've already marketed the first book in the series as young adult, like
Yeah,
that's
like
what
what are
they're
they
gonna
just
take.
supposed to not read the rest?
And
Like,
so I think it comes down to like if you know where your book series is headed, like that
mhm.
is how you should market it.
And I also just think there needs to be honesty whenever you are like, maybe there should be like just a set of general guidelines, like,
Yeah.
hey, if it includes this, this, and this, go ahead and like just market that as new adult. Because again, I'm not saying that I believe like 16-year-olds can't read new adult.
Yeah.
Like they
No.
can,
They certainly
but
can.
they should know
Like this is
what it is when they're buying it.
more adult content. Like
Yeah.
this is not just your PG-13 type book.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I also feel like maybe it's just like because they can market it to a broader audience, like by putting in young adult, that's kind of messed up too.
Yeah. Because then it's like, okay, you could get a
You could
12-year-old
get in
who's like,
trouble for that, I feel like.
yeah, like, okay. Because again, there's a huge difference between like older teens and preteens. Like, but young adult seems to cater to that whole,
Anything between 12 and 18-year-olds, and that's a
yeah.
big jump.
So it's just like we just need to be more honest about what's in our books. Because like again, then people can make just an informed decision like, okay, this is what I'm comfortable reading.
Yeah,
And then they'll know what they're buying.
for sure. And that, I mean, the second question kind of plays into that too. It's like I feel like in a lot of what we would consider to be young adult books, like you do have a main female character who is significantly younger, and then a main male character who is like a fairy
Yeah.
or like a vampire or whatever. And so again, it's just like there's a huge age gap in like a lot of these books. And so
Yeah. This actually pisses
like
me off.
I feel like that's kind of sending not a great message either. Because, like, even thinking back to like Twilight, like we talked
Mm-hmm.
about last week, or like I read a series like in high school that like had fae in it, and like a girl was taken to like a fae court
Mm-hmm.
and like was in like a marriage pact and whatever, or like a betrothal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like she was 18 too, and like that was a young adult book, but
Yeah.
it's like that's not really awesome. Like, that's not.
It's it's kind of predatory and it kind of like perpetuates the idea that like because I think obviously every 18-year-old is going to think like, oh, I'm
They're an
so mature
adult.
for my
Yeah.
age. I know. And like I get that. I was 18 once.
I
Like
thought that
I get
too.
it. And yes, like you should be respected and like treated as an like treated with respect as an adult, but there are just some things that you just have not had the experience or the
I
time to develop and grow
Yeah.
in, and you're naive, babes. Like it's true, like you're a sweet summer child and you shouldn't wish time away. You should want to stay like that as long as time allows you to.
And I feel like authors have just gotten way too comfortable with that being like
The
the
norm.
baseline. Yeah.
Yeah. I hate it. It pisses me off.
It's
I'm like,
creepy.
can we have a main female character with a fully developed brain?
It's like
Please.
that's what I really like about like the Cruel Prince series, for example. So Holly
Mhm.
Black is one of my favorite authors. She wrote the Spiderwick Chronicles, and she recently wrote well, it was a recent, it's called the Folk of the Air series. So the Cruel Prince is the first one. And it's
Mhm.
like it is about the Fae, but the two main characters are the same age.
Okay.
And it's same thing in like the spin-off series. Like it is about the Fae, and some of the Fae are older, but
Mhm.
those two characters are the same age. And
Okay.
it is like a true young adult novel. And I love that.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I even loved, okay, so like Shadow and Bone, like because she didn't end up going in the direction of like the Darkling like actually being like the romantic interest. She was like, no, that's creepy.
And
So
she
like
even
I
says
respect
that.
that.
Like
I
she's
respect
like,
that.
yeah, the Darkling was like preying on Alina.
Yeah. And like we make
And
jokes.
we joke about it.
We joke about it because we're like justice for the Darkling, just because we love the morally gray anti-hero character
But we'll
in
admit
books.
that it's creepy.
Yes, but again, it's like, okay, so if I wanted a book where the Darkling was the romantic lead, I would want Alina to be older. So it's just like nothing, like my opinion on that will never change. I hate it. I think it kind of it could like end up affecting someone potentially if they like are not having a lot of like support.
It's like an older man is going to give me the adventure and like what I need from life type of thing.
Yeah. Like if there is a young person who's just not super secure in themselves, has never really felt like that validation and love and support from like the people and the adults in their life that they should receive that from, then some creepy man is going to come along and take advantage of that. And I think that these books kind of might negatively impact
Yeah.
their view of that situation.
I
So,
agree. And that's a very long-winded answer, but it's just something that has really been bugging me, like as we like go back and forth between some young adult novels
mhm.
compared to some of the other books that we read.
I know. And I feel like we always do touch on this, but this is the first time that we've really like did a
Just
deep
wanted to
dive.
dive
So,
deep, yeah.
oh, okay. So this discussion question, I just want to know if like you have an opinion on this.
I
What do
do.
you think that Kerri kept writing? Like she specifically was pointing out that Amelia was like always like losing wrath. Like he was always slipping
Hmm.
away. He was always out of her sight. And she was like, oh, like he disappeared again. Like, what's
Yes. So I saw that you'd written this question down, so I didn't write like what I was going to say earlier on.
Mhm.
So yeah, multiple times this happened. So Wrath, when they first got to Gluttony's house, was like, "I will meet you
In
in
your room?
your room," and then he never showed up,
Yes.
and we never learned anything about it. And it was brought up again, like, oh man, I'm still wondering, where did he go? Did he need
Hmm.
another woman?
Yeah.
Who's to say? Not sure. He went off with Lust though.
Hmm.
And Amelia does not trust Lust,
Right.
obviously, because he's kind of a piece of shit to her.
Yeah.
And nothing came of that.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, multiple times at the feast, she'd try to watch Wrath, but Wrath was gone.
Yep.
And then another brother would come in and grab her.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know. That's why I don't still fully trust Wrath. It's like, I feel like all of them have stuff planned with each other, but in different ways. So, like, maybe Wrath and Gluttony have some deal that Gluttony doesn't know about, like Wrath and Lust having type of thing. So,
Yeah. It's just so weird. And at one point, like I said, it even led me to believe that maybe like Wrath was Pride or something. Because I was
right.
like, why is she not seeing them together at the same
And
time?
why
Like it
would
was
Kerri
just
mention
so
it so
dodgy.
many times?
Yeah.
Like,
And
I
so,
don't know. I still don't know. I'm not going to lie to you. I've read the third book and I still don't know.
okay.
Yeah, that wraps up Kingdom of the Cursed. It was kind of a long one, but we had a lot to say. This was kind of a big turning point in this series, so we needed to get a lot of stuff out here.
And it was a big info dump too. Like
Yes.
the amount of information just thrown at you at the end was crazy. Next week, we are going to be discussing some of the lore surrounding hell, just as a fun little mini-sode. It'll be inspired, like, basically from this book specifically, like the seven deadly sins and like
We'll
the
probably talk
what
about
hell looks
Dante a few
like. And
times.
yeah, so it'll just be kind of like a little discussion of like what hell is like in different interpretations.
And then the week after that, we are going to be continuing with this series, the third and final book in the Kingdom of the Wicked. It's called The Kingdom of the Feared. So hopefully we get some of our questions answered.
Fingers freaking crossed because I'm like desperate for answers. So go ahead, start reading that one. We'll talk to you next week. And as always,
Let's get lit.